Hey, hey, that's my car spot. Oi, my car. Yes, babe, yes, I know. Organic kale. Yes, I know. Almond milk. I'm just trying to park. Not the Milk Lab one. Yes. I know. I gotta go. Bye. Man, I need a beer. Crazy out there, isn't it?
It's nuts.
Trying to find a park, trying to get your organic kale, trying to get to the Walling Bar for a beer on a Friday after another crazy week, being the head honcho of the craziest shire in the craziest part of the world. Well, cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Welcome, Richo, to the Walling Bar.
Pleasure. I'm stoked to be here.
The newest venue, very socially distanced in here. We only have one musician and one other person's allowed to come in and hang out every week.
Do you have to turn over the tables pretty regularly then, I guess, to make a quid?
Yeah, well, we're all pivoting. I'm not even switched on. So I guess as a business, it's all about pivoting these days.
Isn't that the word?
It's like selfie was like the catchphrase word of 2010 or something, and now it's pivoting.
The other big word is deep dive.
Deep dive, like deep dish pizza.
No, deep dive is when you go into something a little bit more thoroughly. So if you go to conferences, everyone's talking about going to the deep dive as they pivot.
Is that the same as going down the rabbit hole, like the Facebook algorithms are trying to suck us into?
Well, the rabbit hole suggests that we don't quite know what's at the other end, and we could end up, talking to rabbits. But
and I guess that's the job of one of the jobs of the mayor is trying to figure out what's at the end of the rabbit holes as we go down them, and how to guide the rabbits through the hole.
well, guiding suggests I've got more control than perhaps is true. Reflecting, acknowledging, watching the rabbits go berserk is one thing, but look, we are a very...
Who gave the rabbits a keyboard? That's what I want to know.
Sorry?
Who gave the rabbits a keyboard?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm afraid I don't know. But not too sure I got the answer.
Yeah. So you've been the mayor for how long now is it?
I've now clicked over into my 9th year.
Your 9th year. It's the era.
It is actually
Simon
true
Richardson.
that it's now the longest ever.
Really?
Well, as far as...
Oh, congratulations, mate. You've survived. Mate, you've still got a smile on your face. You've got a sense of humour. And that, I mean, to me, like, one of the things that I love about you whenever I bump into you around Byron or like chat on the radio is you have still got your sense of humour about you. And in a job like yours you must be under constant pressure. It's one of the most polarising sort of communities in a lot of ways. You've got those people who own places and are quite happy the way things are and don't want things to change, and those people who want to be part of the community and can't find anywhere to live, and you're kind of trying to make two sides happy.
It's a really hard one like that, isn't it? Like, how do we keep the tide back? It's the same question as how do we stop change, or how do we deal with change? Like, you're right, some just don't want us to change, and that's okay that we don't want us to change, but it's also kind of irrelevant what we want, because change is happening. The question really is, how do we change? How do we change in a way that we give our kids the same place that we love? That's I guess for me, I've just wanted to concentrate more on, rather than that great scene in the movie Network. I don't know if you remember that, Peter Finch, when he opens up the window and he screams out, "I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore." And then everyone else in the cities do the same. It's like, okay, that feels great for 5 seconds. A bit like bad Chinese food, feels great for 5 seconds, and after that you kind of wish there was something more. And so I guess I've seen that, I've done that myself, but I'm interested in actually trying to help manage. And that's harder, it's uglier, it's messier. It's not as doesn't have the same cheer squad who says good on you, but we've got to, because otherwise, if we just say the rest of the world can bugger off, it's like with developers. If we just say no to every developer, the developer who doesn't give a shit about our community says bugger off. Here's my development. I'm going to go to court. You can't tell me no, and we get them. But the developer who actually cares about the community and actually wants to add to it, they say, I'm going to walk away because this is a bit too hard to deal with. And so are we actually gaining by saying no, in capital letters, or are we actually losing somehow?
Well, I guess I don't know. I guess is it difficult when you come from a green background and you are talking about development? Is it hard? It's hard to keep everybody happy that are on the green side of the fence, isn't it?
Look, it is, because I guess it depends on how entrenched we are with ideology. I mean, most of us, I guess, have an ideology as far as what we think's right.
Green Coast Lager. So,
there we go.
Yeah.
And this is the question: do we let ideology guide us, or do we let ideology control us?
Yeah.
Now, for me, I let it guide me. If there's a question, and it's looking back, what's really important? What are the values that are really important? Sustainability, community. These things then help guide a decision, but they don't control it, because we need to be practical idealists. We need to be pragmatic idealists, because that's the only way to actually keep somehow in control of change. Otherwise, you step aside with ideology and you become irrelevant.
So, I mean, it's been a long road the last 9 years. You're saying, if you were to just sort of step out of office right now, what would you sort of look back on as your sort of proudest moments here in the show? The disco dong, obviously. The disco dong would have to be right up there.
See, that's an interesting one, because as a human being, I have so many different emotions, because that artist is a mate of mine. He's a Melbourne artist of national renown. He's got major works in the Australian War Memorial. He's got works across the country. When he put an application, and he loves Byron, and so it was a crap money job for him. It was, so for him, his perspective, he just wanted to somehow again leave something and add something to Byron.
I really miss it, to be honest.
Well, but see, the problem was I had nothing to do with.
I missed the disco dong. I saw it.
Who out there misses the disco dong?
Well, it also wasn't finished, and that's the sad bit.
Great artwork this time.
No.
Well, his was probably 70% finished. If you picture it. And look, we've all got lessons to learn. And just to flag, even though I said he's a mate of mine, I had nothing to do with the selection. I walked out of the chambers.
I can feel the trolls right now hitting social media.
But so it was basically about 3 or 4 layers to go that was intended to go on it, and he only had about 2. And so things like even some of the shape was going to be pushed out far more significantly. So it's going to be less round and more. So for me, it's a bit unresolved. I don't mind someone attacking.
It's an interesting metaphor about Byron in general, isn't it? That it's this strange, beautiful place that isn't quite finished yet.
With a lot of non-local influence.
Although there's a car park at the rails now, which is, what do you
think of that?
I don't know. I love that.
You like the pothole one?
It's not that I like it. It's what I grew up with, and it's Byron changes so much so quickly that every little sort of childhood memory that you have from growing up here that no longer exists kind of hurts a little bit. Like that dirt car park.
Yep.
To me was a little bit of the old Byron just holding on.
Yeah, the neglected space.
Every time like a beach house gets kind of ripped down to another apartment, it's the gentrification.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what you're saying about development, I mean, I agree, because whether we like it or not, right now we're seeing in front of our eyes Sydney and Melbourne basically moving to Byron in front of us. Like literally, they're frantically snatching up every bit of property they can. There's like 4 films being shot in the area, and apparently Natalie Portman's just decided, I'm going to stay in Byron and buy a place. And why wouldn't you? I mean, it's so.
And this is the problem, mate. Although going back to that car park, see, again, it is a metaphor, but at the same time, it's got water-sensitive urban design, stormwater. So so this is where I talk about managing change. Back in the day, we had a car park that I used to receive complaints on a weekly basis, with people saying, fix the bloody thing, it's a disgrace, and photos, and blah, 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 blah. And all the water that went there just helped flood the town. Now we've actually got a nicer, gentrified car park, but we've actually got national leading water sensitive urban design principles. So we've got rain gardens. So where the water lands on that, it actually gets treated properly. So that's where
people don't have all the information really when they kick a fuss up about things. And it's like that with the internet. The information we get is always very, the algorithms, we only get fed certain facts. By the way, Mikey's here. He's even brought his kid here. River's going to play a little song for us, and that's a lovely little thing, you know. A lot of us have children in the Shire.
I'm so happy that he's playing.
Is he a Steiner kid? Are you a Steiner kid?
I wish I was.
River is.
I wish I was. My kids are
River
smart
is.
Kids, and that's,
Yeah.
We see each other at the car park.
Who was better behaved?
Not a wave all the time. It's my favourite thing.
Who's better behaved, the general Byron public or the kids at Steiner school? And you've done both jobs. You've looked after the Steiner kids and you've looked after the Byron public.
Yeah.
Who plays nicer? Who shares better?
Well, they share the same, but the Steiner kids dress more individually.
Yeah, right.
My wife used to always be able to, we used to walk down the street and a couple of kids would be like, "G'day, Simon." She'd go, "These are the Steiner kids, aren't they?" Because they'd be wearing like a onesie or a, like a hat the size of, the Taj Mahal. She's like, "They're a Steiner kid." If it's
creative.
So overtly confident.
Yes.
And why wouldn't I be wearing this?
Absolutely.
And it's like, it's kind of some of that old school sense of here.
Yeah.
You're like, that confidence in individuality, which won't leave this place.
Absolutely.
We might get a song from Mikey, and I think Simon hasn't even had a chance to catch his breath, just rushed straight in.
That's why I've been smashing this so hard.
Yeah, well, mate, it's
A couple
Friday
more
knockoff.
beers. Now we'll make it a little bar. This is the most intimate but stimulating bar I've been in of beer chat.
Because you go through phases of going to bars and not going to bars. You're a very bipolar when it comes
the bands
to
usually only last 3 to 6 months. That's not true. But here's a song so you guys can just relax. For a
Okay,
second.
we look forward to it, don't we?
Well, this song's for you and me. Live long on our street. I'll take your hand, and if there's trouble, we'll do what we can to keep our house. It's full of love. Yeah, I'll stand by you in this life. Oh, this world is big enough for our needs and all our stuff. Where we go, we're still home. Our suitcase is big enough to hold us all and keep a house. It's full of love. I'll stand by you in this life. Oh, paint the walls the color of your eyes, and pull the shades for afternoon delights, to keep a house that's full of love. Yeah, I'll stand by you in this life. Yeah, I'll stand by you in this life. Yeah, I'll stand by you in this life.
Mikey from MC
Give it down
Morning.
out there. Give it
Yeah,
down out there.
mate, earning him cash here in the Walling Bar tonight.
The Walling Bar is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
I like its piece of history in town as well.
Represents.
It's-
I mean, it's a ship that's sunk,
Yeah.
and we're
You get-
bringing it back up.
You get to the Walling Bar, you leave a wreck. Huh?
There you go. It's, there you go. Salty. So let's. I'd love to hear your point of view, because you kind of must have had like a bit of a POTUS moment earlier in the year, like as far as crises go. You know, like being at the helm of a whole group of people with this all of a sudden a global pandemic upon us, and just making decisions about shutting down beaches or not. And Yeah, how what was it like? Was it sort of how describe it?
Yeah, those there's been a couple like that over the years, like fire and landslips or floods. I've got to say, on a human level, that they are incredibly draining and exhausting because it's perhaps even a perceived. I feel the weight of responsibility so intensely, even though it's as much about the community's expectation of my response rather than what I can do. You know, like things like closing the beach. You know, you're talking about which I actually don't have the power to do. I could make it stink and kind of make it happen, but I don't technically have the power to do. But you talk about iconic beaches, you know, and then on one hand you've got media, you know, coming every 5 minutes, you know, whether it be local or state or national, and again, so half of that's what gets aired and what doesn't, and so that's exhausting. But then it's like, you know, you got someone who'll say, you know, I surf here every day, don't you dare close this will destroy Byron, etc. And then I'll get someone 5 minutes later calling me in tears saying, I'm 35-year-old, I've got motor neuron disease, I'm highly contagious, I have to walk past 10 surfers who keep yakking next to their car. For Christ's sake, stop these car parks happening because my life is at stake. And I'm sitting there thinking, and so half of my reaction, to be honest, is just trying to kind of be as supportive and not say what I want to say half the time is the responsibility of trying to keep people together when a natural inclination under stress is to hide in your burrow is really hard.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess everybody had a point where they weren't sure what was going on, whether there was a virus that was as bad as what was being said, or if there was some sort of slight government conspiracy about bringing in changes to our society on a grand scale to do with cashless society and microchipping us. And if that was the case, I suppose people would look to Byron as a place of resistance. You know what I mean? So did you feel on the one hand that you had to keep a bit of more of an open mind than possibly other, mayors of other towns? Because because you can't trust everything you read in the media. You can't trust all levels of government, and
that's true. But I think those who look at some sort of small cabal of puppet masters who are shaping these things have a overblown belief in how organised we are as people. Economically, sure, there could be a few people like George Soros or other who can manipulate global markets, because the economic system is very easy to manipulate. It's by its very nature, it's speculative. It's all about speculation. But actually,
you would say, if you were one of the lizard people, you would be saying that.
But as far as actually dealing with societies across the globe, it's my experience, which is certainly not as grand as others, but in the experience that I've had in meeting ministers and premiers and et cetera, and even during COVID, how much the information came, you know, I look at it's most people are simply responding to the information they've got. And I can put hand on heart to say, from a New South Wales point of view and the bits that I know, people were just responding on a daily basis to what they were being told.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm no fan of ScoMo, but I sometimes think, God, imagine being in that meeting. Imagine being in that first meeting when the head of medicine and health said, you know what, 100,000 people could die. You just shut down the entire country. I mean, imagine that meeting. You know, it's like it's regardless of what people think about the response, et cetera, this shit hadn't happened since 1920. You know, so no one was alive when it happened. So, and on a daily basis, for me, I guess in the pandemic scenario, I always would rather someone overreact than underreact, because it's like the mayor of Amity in Jaws. You know, do you want to underplay it? Do you want to underplay? There's no real shark here because you're worried about the economy, and then kids start dying. Or do you end up saying, let's close the beach?
Well, let's not bring sharks into it. We just get any more controversy. We could bring sharks into it. Yeah. Well, you know who's got COVID now?
I know. I heard today.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Donald Trump
and his wife.
But we were all having a good chat about it here at the Walling Bar at / North Coast events, and wouldn't that be the perfect publicity stunt right now to show that it's not even a big deal, and
What if he
Biden's
gets really
a pussy,
sick, though?
and I know that's
What if he does a Boris Johnson and actually gets to hospital and almost gets the last rites? He could be in a bit of strife.
yeah.
I only hope.
Do you? How much do you look at the global politics? Do you do you watch all of the presidential debates and all that kind of
Look,
stuff?
it's interesting because that's my training. That's my actual background. So when I went to university at Georgetown, Washington DC, to join the Foreign Service. So I studied at the School of Foreign Service. So we had Bill Clinton was actually the president of our student union at Georgetown. So I saw him speak a few times. Helmut Kohl, the Chancellor of Germany. So that was going to be my.
Set your sights high and.
I always want to change the world, and I always wanted to change the world. So I always figured, okay, if you want to change the world, you go to the top, the United Nations and that sort of shit. What changed me in that sense was I remember watching a photo of Ali Alatas, the Indonesian foreign minister, and Gareth Evans, the Australian one, and they were sharing champagne over the Timor Sea after they just did that gas deal where they screwed East Timor. And I thought, you know what? If I was working in the Foreign Service, one of my jobs would have had to be make that deal happen. And it's like, so that's when I went a complete 180 and said, if I want to change the world, I've got to think global and act local. So I then went to forest after forest, and that, so.
And how's Biggs going?
Look, we're
Are we allowed to talk about Biggs?
no, not really.
No, okay.
No,
that's
look,
why I was hoping you'd come here early so we knew what we were talking about.
no. This is it's an interesting point. I helped create a group where it is existing to a certain degree, but it came from an idea of basically how do we, as this community, who's got amazing ideas and amazing passion and increasingly amazing financial capacity to make shit happen, how do we be a global exemplar community? How do we actually start putting things in place where your kid and my kids can potentially have meaningful jobs, not just relying on a cafe to work, and compete with Inga the German backpacker? How do we actually be a truly sustainable community that the world can learn from? I think we are a perfect community to be that, but we're not. So why aren't we? And so I helped create this group called Byron Initiating Global Solutions. And the idea behind it is how do we get someone with an idea with someone with a capacity to help realise it? And that's basically where it came from. So we've been looking at various ways to do that. There's actually a site next to Habitat, which we were looking at how can we make that sort of be a precinct. And that's happening, not with Biggs, because in the end, my role, it was just sort of decided, again, especially with some press are a little bit less generous of spirit. It was like, I don't want to be a problem with it, making it happen. So it's easier if Biggs stops, but the vision starts. So
That's very noble.
So next to Habitat, Council at the moment have got an expressions of interest of people who want to develop that site for exactly the same purpose. Awesome. What can we put on that site that has meaningful jobs and careers, that actually is potentially tackling something that we as a community need and the globe could benefit from?
Very exciting. Sorry about putting you on the spot.
That's all right.
I thought I was just hanging out in the bar catching up there, and then I was like, oh, hang on, everybody's watching this.
Whoever the camera is, the reason Danny asked that question is part of that group. We really wanted to make sure it was a community group, and so we got Danny to be a community advisor, because you can have an economic advisor to say whether something's going to fly or not, but we also wanted to make sure the community of someone who's born and raised in this area can say, you know what, yeah, that is for us.
I was just going to build a wave pool, but
well, I know, and you're hopefully going to prepare bring the beers. So there's other reasons why you're invited, but
or at least a skate park would be nice.
It's coming.
Is it? All right. That's news.
$1.2 million skate parks happening in Byron.
Can you just expand on the one outside of the Yak there?
Oh, that's world class, mate.
It's the same area.
Skate boom.
It's the same area.
World
so
class.
the current $5.50 skate bowl in Byron, which is you're describing, is going to be a $1.2 million skate park.
Nice.
And I bet people still complain. They're like, I miss it. I miss that dump of concrete.
I reckon we should
Lean around. No,
put the
you
disco
made-
dong on top of the old
Oh
skate park.
no!
Just float it up there.
A museum of bad ideas.
The scars are still raw. Please.
Are we ready
Would,
for a song?
would you want to do with your violinist?
I would like to introduce River here.
Hi, River.
River
You're our
Bryan.
first young person. Can we ask River a couple of questions about growing up in Byron as well? Or
Yeah, can you hear her through this mic, Sound Peoples?
join your mic?
You
I can hear you. I just wanted to ask what it's like growing up in Byron Bay.
Oh, well, it's pretty nice.
Yeah? What are your favourite things about it?
Well, I mean, it's kind of takes away. You go on holidays and you're like, wait, I live in places like this. Like, basically grown up in like a postcard setting.
Which is
so-
why I take them to holidays in like Lightning Ridge, Moree. Where else have we been? White Cliffs.
Yeah. all
Father
the-
of the year.
We had some Dubbo.
Oh yeah.
So, what if you were mayor of the Byron Shire one day? What would you?
What can I do?
Oh. Oh God.
Oh God! what do they teach you at
I
Steiner?
don't know if that was a list
Yeah.
or on the spot.
I'm
Where
not
do
sure.
I
I'm not
begin?
sure she's available yet. But
I'm not really sure, to be honest.
An expansion on the bead shop to make better
Yeah.
necklaces.
yeah, I've got two daughters too, just
Yeah,
below you.
I've spoken to them.
Yeah, they love the bead shop too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great question because it's fascinating to walk through our spaces with kids, how we actually interact. Like, for example, Railway Park. You know, as somewhere where most of us all in this room, Railway Park was the place we walked through quickly to get to the pub. You know,
We didn't have to walk through it. I remember you used to be able to climb over the tree branches without touching the ground. That was so much fun.
Still the favourite tree in town, right?
Totally. Yeah, the oleander trees.
Whereas now it's actually
Oh, the
a place where
cannons, yeah.
people can hang out.
I forgot about the cannons.
You're going back. The cannons.
Cannons.
But I mean, it is
Yeah.
interesting to walk through to see how, and that's why I get, you know, as other people do, I get a bit defensive when people are so quick to write off Byron. It's not like it used to be, whatever. No one was, I'm not like I used to be either. But, you know, young people still love being here. And as a teacher, when I speak to year 12 students, I've never met a year 12 student in Byron who regrets growing up here. They're all happy to leave, which is cool because you need to see the big world. But most of them
No, it
still
is.
think, I want to come back at some point, and I'm so stoked I grew up here. So we aren't doing a bad thing bringing up kids in this area.
No, I haven't been bringing up kids, but you know.
But you got brought up here.
Yeah.
Did you regret it? Did you wish you were a
But,
Sydney boy?
but because I was brought up here, I've never really grown up, so it's really hard to.
But this
become a parent.
this is
How do you go- how do you become a
you're
parent?
one of the front runners of growing up here, and it's amazing. It is changing, which is this song that we're going to play for you now.
Yeah.
It's kind of like something
let's do that.
deeply affected me in my youth that I've got to pass on to my kids, and it's like it'll explain itself as we go, but how things change and what was something beautiful can become even more beautiful.
This is the Friday Knockoff. You're tuned into Byron Bay Live here at the Walling Bar. Thanks to North Coast Events and all the team for bringing this production to your screens. You.
1, 2. Oh, babe, how was I supposed to know that something wasn't right? Whoa, babe, I shouldn't have let you go. Now you're right outside. Why don't you show me how you want it to be? Tell me, baby, I guess I need to know now, not just because my loneliness is killing me, and I
I must confess that I still believe when I'm not with you, I lose my mind. Give me a sign. Hit me, baby, one more time. Oh, babe, how was I supposed to know that something wasn't right? Oh, babe, I shouldn't have let you go. But now you're right outside. Why don't you show me how you want it to be? Tell me, baby, 'cause I need to know now, not just because my loneliness is killing me inside. I must confess that I still believe when I'm not with you, I lose my mind. Give me a sign. Hit me, baby, one more time. My loneliness is killing me, and I must confess, I still believe when I'm not with you, I lose my mind. Give me a sign. Hit me, baby, one more time.
Well, you've just made up for taking your kids on holidays to Grafton by singing Britney. That makes them a pretty cool dad, doesn't it, River? Yeah, you can't, yeah. As a father, you know, your kids can't, they're never going to give you too much, you know.
That was about the highest accolade you could get.
Yeah.
That was an awesome riff.
He's all right.
Nice playing.
He's an all right dad. So do you enjoy playing music, River?
I do. I go through up and down phases where I'm like, yes, gonna practice, and then I'm like, I'm quitting.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Does he put pressure on you?
Yes,
Is he put pressure on you to practice?
No,
or?
I put pressure on him to practice.
Ah, there you go. That's a good.
I'm trying this out for this generation, like the little reverse psychology parenting. I was like,
Sure.
you don't have to go to school. It's like, no, Dad, I have to go to school.
Yeah,
So, what's it like for your kids, Simon? Having being the kids of the mayor, is it?
That's all they know. That's all they actually know. I've got Frida, who's 11, so she, it was 2 when I was mayor, and Matilda's 8, so that's all she's known. So it's kind of funny because she, not that I'm sure, they don't really know what I do. They love my office because they walk in and there's a little bar. There's a bar fridge in there, and that's it. And the first day they found it, it was like in this, and so every day they open it, and they go, "Dad, there's nothing in there." And I was like, "Oh," so they're always annoyed when I haven't stocked it.
And they think you live in a hotel or something.
Well, this is they open everything,
Yeah.
they get excited, but.
Hey, Dad, what's this death threat?
And my daughter often,
what does this mean?
Matilda often says, she always sort of introduces me as, Simon Bridges, the mayor of Byron Shire. It's almost like it's my
Really?
it's my surname almost. So
Yeah.
it's going to be very
That's
interesting to see. It's going to be very interesting to see how they react when.
Do they have an interest in politics? Do you think they, are they, showing any interest in
No, but
that kind of thing?
But they also, I think, like most most people before you start doing your own learning, in a way, you basically just parrot what your parents say a bit. So I'm really reluctant to sort of, because quite often Fred will say a real anti-Trump thing, which I support, but it's like, you just kind of heard that in the yard. You don't know what you're saying. So I kind of just sort of say, yeah, look, I want you to learn. I want you to be open to the world and have opinions, but inform them.
So you've never seemed to be the sort of person that goes down into that gutter level of of trash talking other people, or I mean I don't know, like we had Hans Lovejoy in last week, and I was like, you must have pretty thick skin, and your skin looks kind of normal, but it must be pretty thick too. Like, and here you are having a beer, having a smile and a chat. But psychically, mental health wise, like how do you stop that penetrating when you get vitriol coming at you from
I struggle.
Facebook social groups?
I can tell you, I had acute episodic depression during my time as mayor. For probably, I haven't actually said this publicly, so I guess it's might as well now. Probably 9 months before the last election to 9 months after the last election, I had acute depression. So, for example, the day I got elected, highest Green primary vote, I think, in Australian history. I was pretty numb by the end. The next day, I didn't even want to go out in public because I didn't want people to say, "You must be feeling great," because I didn't. So I spent the week before that election, I pretty much spent either on the couch or I would door knock. I mean, not door knock actually, because that's dealing with people, but letter dropped. So if anyone lives in Bangalore or Ocean Shores or Mullum and you got my election flyer, I gave it, because in a way that was an easy thing to do. I could just go and walk and hand them out. So
like a tortured artist.
Well,
I'm really empathizing with all of this, Simon. It's huge.
Well, I mean, criticism I find very hard. So, I mean, I can't read the Echo. For my own mental health, I can't read it. If someone says to me, you need to read this is slander, it's like, okay, I'll look just to make sure, whether I need to call a lawyer or something. But
don't go near the Byron Community Board then.
Oh, I can't. I mean, I can't.
I can't even. I'm too scared to post a room for rent on that place.
No, so I can't do that either. I used to voice of Byron was even
for
worse.
sale. Surfboard, please just some buy it. Don't tell me to piss off where I came from, or that the surf's too crowded already. Don't sell surfboards on here, or that's not a local shaper, or
It's toxic, isn't it?
I'm trying to do good. I just want to sell my surfboard.
It's full on.
I don't need a lesson in ethics.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I guess it's how you respond. Like if you're being bullied or someone's just been unreasonably mean all the time, and most of us, you might try to laugh and try to buddy up so they stop doing it, or you might attack back, or eventually you've just got to kind of stop enabling it and walk away. So, for example, you mentioned Hans. I can't respond to him. If he emails me, it's generally a loaded sort of judgmental, basically saying, you're an idiot, aren't you? Tell us what, give us a quote that you're not, sort of thing. So it's like if I give a quote, it becomes an article that isn't really newsworthy. If I don't respond, sometimes it gets printed otherwise.
Doesn't seem very impartial then in that way.
Well, it's not, but and I don't want to get into the personalities, but so as a result, I now, so when it comes to social media, for me, it's work. So if someone asks me, because a lot of people, that's how I communicate with them, because they don't know my mobile number or whatever. So I'll look and see if someone mentions me in a comment. I have to look and see. But otherwise, I mean, back in the day, it's funny how things change, because I remember before my first election, I would go online on the Tuesday night before the Echo was in print to read it. It was now I don't read it at all. So social media, I used to sit there and get lost for hours. Exploring community boards and posting stuff and sharing it. Now it's in. Share some information, get out.
What's changed? Why does it seem to be so predominantly a place for people to troll each other in vitriol when it should be such a place for sharing information and sharing?
Because there's no etiquette. Human communication is 10,000 years in evolution. So how we're talking now, I'm facing you as I talk.
Yeah.
So that's thousands of years of evolution, how that works. We look each other in the eye. If I start screaming, you'll know I'm angry, and you'll say, and people here will say, hey, shut up. You know, if I change the topic in a group, people will say, no, we're not talking about that. So we've had evolution of etiquette, how we communicate, non-verbally, verbally, and then written form, if you use full capitals, you know.
Now we just use emojis.
Whereas social media is only about 10,000 days old. So, you know, initially we put emojis in because we want to show an emotion, because in case you misunderstand me, I'll put a smiley face because you might misinterpret my sentence, or you say, why are you being so short? Well, I'm just using 5 words, you know. So as a result, we don't have an etiquette to keep each other acting respectfully. It's interesting because I've actually got this little spiel that whenever someone completely changes the topic or kind of hijacks a post of mine about something completely unrelated, which you wouldn't do again in normal communication, I actually have a little spiel, and I just sort of say, look, you know, I'm happy for you to be part of this, but please respect this conversation, or I'll have to, you know, delete
the principal
you.
coming out.
And I'll also say, by the way, everyone
Stay after school, please.
Well, but I mean, you have to. I mean, how else are we going to change etiquette? And so I'll even say, everyone who's watching this and reading it and you're staying silent, you're part of this. It's like a bullying circle. If you stand there and doing nothing, you're enabling bullying. So at some point, we as a community, and it'll happen because time will force it to happen, we as humans need to grab this technology and start to insisting upon each other to have an etiquette as to how to use it. So we have some civility and we ditch the toxicity.
And I think like it's important that we don't just become a community of people hiding behind keyboards, that we get people out from, I mean, it's been a year that people have been isolated in their own homes, and that's their only way to reach out to people. But like you said, when you're speaking to someone face to face, there's so many things that you wouldn't say to them that you do on a keyboard and, you know, sitting in your...
And also, in society generally, we are meant to, and certainly through our history, we have learnt to respect expertise. Whereas social media doesn't care about expertise. You're an expert at something because you say you are. You know, so all of a sudden science goes out the window, or expertise. So, I mean, I'm hearing
Fake
constantly
news.
of people who just say, this is this. It's like, well,
Fake news.
it's actually not true. I mean, and I remember this one person slammed this person who I knew, absolute libel. And then within half an hour, someone said, oh, no, that's not true because of this or this. And she goes, oh, and the response was, oh, great, I'm glad the truth came out. I guess that's what Facebook's about. You just share it and then the truth comes. It's like, no, back in the day, you'd ask first. You'd actually find out first. You wouldn't just publicly slam someone and then go, oh, okay, I'm glad we now know.
Oh, whoops.
And that's the
Whoopsie.
etiquette that we need to somehow develop.
Yeah. So, River, like, how can we get people to be nicer to each other?
Oh, I mean, is it possible? You mean like through a screen or?
Well, yeah, I mean, so social media, are you at all worried about it? Because I didn't grow up with social media. I could just go home from school and switch off and just, you know, I wouldn't see anyone from school till the next day. But now when you're a kid, you go home, it's like everyone comes home with you because they're all there on your screen. That must be tough.
Yeah, it's much harder to avoid people.
And being my dear little introvert like me, who's only just not on socials yet, but so it's still
I've decided to keep
That's
that for-
bravo. Bravo.
yeah. But it's huge. I was talking to her older sister about it, who's going to guide River through because she's way wiser than I am on all these things. But it's like, yeah, you can't leave it at school and you can't go to the safety of home, or you can if you switch off, but it's not very kosher to switch off with people with these ideas that aren't real, but they're quite affecting if they get some support behind it, which is it's the most unacademic approach or unintelligent approach to any thought pattern.
And we're actually realizing now, you know, everyone's watched that documentary, and so we're realizing now that we are being actually manipulated in a huge way by these massive tech companies.
River actually made me watch that documentary.
Yeah.
You know, I got like 20,
Good.
20 minutes in, and I just came and took her computer. I was just like,
Yeah,
we're out.
maybe that was a bad move.
Yeah. And the power's going off. Dad, the power's not the internet. No, power's off.
It could be.
Yeah.
So what's great about Byron, Simon, and what do we need to do to get back to what, I don't want to say make Byron great again because then I'm sounding like Trump. But I do feel like when I grew up, you know, things seemed a lot more wholesome. You know, we had supper time blues. We had these little, you know, it was, you know, I don't want to be too nostalgic, but there is that core essence there. And we are being sort of smothered by these gentrification things going on. But what can we do as a community to get back a little bit more of what we used to have?
Oh, it's a really hard one. It's funny, you talk about Supper Time Blues. I remember it would have been 95 around that when Supper Time Blues closed. And I remember there was a sign at the front saying, goodbye to the old Byron. You know, so this Byron's gone. You know, it's not exactly the first time if someone says it tonight on Facebook, you're not exactly a pioneer in suggesting Byron's gone and the old Byron. Look, it's a really interesting one because we are now. So when you were growing up, Byron was hardly known in Australia. In fact, really, as a Melbourne boy growing up in suburban Melbourne, Byron was known as the lighthouse was the easternmost point.
And John Cornell came and bought the beach hotel.
So it's still the 80s where it started to have, and then 90s to started to have that, more the greater reach, so to speak. I mean, now it's a global place, and that's the difference. I mean, it's now certainly a national. I mean, we get 2.4 million visitors. That's about 3 times Tasmania gets. The entire state of Tasmania gets about 800,000. We get 2.4 million. Hey, my whole family's Tasmanian.
I always say one thing a week that I'm not supposed to say.
But so for a town of 10 to 15,000 to get 2.4 million visitors, I mean it's so in a way the lid's off the genie bottle. And really, it's 2020. People are buying properties here sight unseen. We've got. It's funny. I do media, and they'll say, "We want to talk to you about the bubble. We want to talk to you about this." And at the end, we'll talk about Zac Efron and celebs. And it's like, do you have to? But so the rest of Australia is besotted with us.
The Daily Mail, man, they love it.
I have to ignore them, but they're besotted with us. And so for every inner city creative who's in Melbourne and Sydney, who's sitting there thinking, God, if I can find a way to earn in Byron, I'm there tomorrow.
They all have because they all had to during COVID.
Exactly, and that's why it's not going to change. This pressure to come into our place is only going to increase prices. It's only going to put bigger pressure. Not everyone, most people aren't coming to wreck us. That's one myth that a lot of people keep saying. These local, these people are just coming. It's like, sorry, mate. I know people who've been here for a year and they're giving more to the community than some people who've been here for 50 years. Who've done nothing but suck air in this community. So how long you've been here means nothing compared to the quality of your experience with your community.
That's interesting, yeah.
And most people come here because they love it. They could go to Noosa, they could go to Gold Coast, they could go to Ulladulla, but they come to Byron for what Byron is. They don't come to Byron saying, I'm going to come here and I'm going to change it. So it's not necessarily the people themselves who are changing it, it's the fact that people are coming. But, I spent a lot of my time in St Kilda in Melbourne, and people have probably got Newtown examples or Brighton in England or San Francisco. Any place of difference that people want to go to because they're different, by their very nature, those who come start to dilute that difference. You think about St Kilda, Newtown, Brighton, San Fran. Compared to those places, we've still done pretty well.
I reckon
we are still little Byron.
Mullen's hanging in there. I live in Mullen, and I feel like Mullen's still hanging in there.
But it's also
Go Mullen.
But I love Mullen too. But it's also changing a bit.
It's changing, but there's still enough.
And you can't get a freaking car park.
No,
I know, and you fly over Byron, and you're still 80% vegetation when you look down. I mean, I guess I'll always defend Byron. I hear it all the time. I don't even go there. It's like, cool. If you don't go, great. It's easy for me and my kids to get a park. I mean, I love Byron. Yeah. I always have. I've never been scared of tourists, but I acknowledge that we are in a whole different ballgame as far as being that global place. And one of my biggest concerns is it's called house banking. It's not necessarily Airbnb, which has gutted our community to a fair degree. It's land bank. It's house banking and land banking, where people literally from globally buy a house and just don't do anything to it. Don't actually want to rent it out because then it triggers tax issues. They just need to park money. That happens. That's happening in places around the world. There's a real chance that something like that could happen to Byron because our prices, if you're an investor and you've just got $1 million you just need to park somewhere, Byron's only going to go up. And so that's a great concern. No one's really talking about
Good if you're a squatter.
Yeah, but even then, they employ security and potentially.
I'm just going to go look around for those empty houses.
It's not really happening. But yet, but it's happening in similar places around the world, and that's a real concern because you know. But we're doing little things. See, this is the thing. When you say what's the problem is that we and one of the things that I guess I've tried to change is how can we disagree with civility? How can we? For me, I look at this community and think, for God's sake, life's too short to just be screaming at each other. Like, if we could harness half our energy remotely effectively, we could change the world. We could certainly change our community. But, you know, I'll give you an example. We are looking, council's got very little that we can do about affordable housing. It's not our remit, it's not our job. We've been failed by the state and federal governments who aren't doing it. We don't set land prices. We don't set, you know, so in a way, our role, we've got virtually no input, but we've got a piece of land, right? So we've got a piece of land in Mullum, right behind the skate park and the community gardens there. For us, we've looked at it and think, okay, if we can get the flooding right, let's create a globally significant eco-village that focuses on diverse housing, that low-income people, older couples who want to downsize can find a place, young professionals who just simply can't find a rental can go in, beautifully sustainably designed, cost neutral. Let's try to find it. You know, we be the landowners, so we just try to get that outcome. Could be about 150 dwellings, right? How awesome is that? And yet, you know, I keep hearing, Simon's doing deals with the developers and they're going to put all the poor people on a floodplain, like, and create slums. It's like, for God's sake,
Yeah,
you know, can we not?
We do need to come together, don't we?
Can we not have an eco-village in Mullumbimby?
Sounds good to me.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, if the Mullum community gets shouted out by 10 or 20 people and we cannot deliver a globally, certainly nationally significant eco-village in Mullumbimby, you know, so that's our reality. How do we disagree, debate, converse with a degree of civility, with a degree of nuance, with an acceptance that there's not all black and white, there's a bit of grey?
Yeah, well, hopefully they legalize, you know, marijuana, and everybody could just, like,
There's a start.
you know, everyone can just chill out a little bit.
I think inevitably this place is doing that, and we need a few facilitated spaces like that to do it. Because it's like, I'm watching a lot of people come here now, and people I know from other places, like, they're not going to last. It doesn't matter what they buy. They'll get here and like, my coffee was too slow. That was there. I'm like, it's not their town. They'll go back to Bondi or the other.
Byron spits people
spots.
out.
It's kind of like, you can't last here unless you kind of get on the program and create your own gig.
Yeah.
And as much as the heart and soul that may have been lost when you were a kid, but I'm watching, I'm like, the people coming up here now, I'm like, haven't got a chance, you know. This kid was born here. And I'm like, I watch the way they're growing and I see your kids walking through the schoolyard. I'm like, it's good. Like, we're good. Yes, there's all this stuff, but it's only opportunity to create better thought that's going to go global because we are now.
Yeah.
And it's in a good spot. Like, and thank you, Simon, for that. You've really coached it.
I'm trying, but
Danny, you've also done a bit.
But we've just got to find a way where we can actually
Impressed with you guys.
talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, I look at, you know, about the echo. For me, it's like, I've got the amount of people who come up to me and just say, "You've never met me. I just recognise your face. I can't read that anymore because it's just hate press." You know? It's like, do we need it really? Can't we have a nuanced article? Can't we, rather than say, often local journalism, and I've spoken to some people in Bay FM who I love, who said to me, "Oh, I had this person on and they attacked you, so can we get you on next week?" And it's like, sorry, that's not how journalism should work. Do you know what I mean? It's not he said, she said, a week later. It's like journalists, as journalists, if you respect the craft, you might interview people at the same time, heaven forbid, because then we can actually have a discussion. But if not, if someone says something, you do your own research. You get that expert who can say that's true or not true, because the first person might have been full of crap and I might be full of crap. No one knows. You're just sharing opinions. That's not journalism. So rather than having an article one week saying blah, 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 and then you do an article, it's like, no, maybe don't do an article for 2 weeks. Research it, and then do a series of articles that are researched, thorough. That's what journalism is, and we don't do it.
Or we get like a gladiator style setup, and we just get people to like beat the shit out of each other with like those soft
That's where
things.
we're heading if we don't if we don't do our jobs right.
We're going to wrap things up here at the Walling Bar. The lights are coming on soon. This is just a 1 hour bar, basically, once a week. COVID, I don't know, they open up for an hour. They have 3 customers, but that's what we do here at the Walling Bar. Big thanks to North Coast Events for putting this on for free for the Byron Shire to provide a place, a platform for Byron's artists and personalities to come and share information and ideas and their children to the world. This will be launching River's career here tonight. Well, cheers, Simon. Thanks, mate.
Cheers. Thanks.
Great for coming in. Thanks, Mikey. We're going to go out with a song. You going to play as well? Or? No, okay, cool.
It's all in E major if you can pluck along. But thank you guys for your time. It's so good to
See you guys next week. Space
Amazing.
Cowboy next
Great.
week. We're going to be swallowing swords right here in the Walling Bar next week with the Space
He's
Cowboy.
my next door neighbour.
Is he? Yeah. Has he taught you the sword swallowing?
Well, he's seen me probably in my undies putting the laundry out.
Classic.
Here we sit now, watch the sinking sun. Think of all the roads that we've been down. Well, time may pass us, but we don't mind. We got our bags, yeah, we got our rags, oh, we're doing fine. Yeah, we're doing fine. And we will talk about all our good times. And know there's so much more that we're gonna find. And every next morning we'll set our sails and point into the horizon, 'cause it never fails, nah, it never fails. And we'll think of the places we've never been before. I will think of the faces and of their stories, yeah, of their stories, of their stories, and of their stories, oh. And we will talk about all our good times. And know there's so much more that we're gonna find. Yeah, we'll talk about all our good times. And know there's so much more that we're gonna find. That we're gonna find. That we're gonna find. Thank you, guys.